to Leitner. Puts it up.
You're listening to the Culture State Podcast.
Get ready. Woo!
Welcome to another episode of the Culture State Podcast. I am Chris Lee. That is my man,
Dennis Cox here. Now, real quick, Chris, before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Papa Murphy's Pizza. Did you know, Chris, every Tuesday, you can get a large Papa Murphy's pizza, any kind, for $10.99.
You mean every Tuesday, the day before a new Culture State podcast episode comes out. So what you're saying is you can go to Papa Murphy's, get a nice pizza, pop it in your oven, celebrate by watching something because college basketball is coming back, right? So you can watch that on a Tuesday and then just stay up and listen to the Culture State Podcast at midnight.
Yeah, you could do that. Or eat some cold pizza the next morning as you drive to work, listen to Culture State. 100% all for it. So Papa Murphy's, change the way you pizza. Give them a follow on Twitter and Instagram at Papa Murphy's. Again, change the way you pizza.
That's definitely changing the way you pizza for sure right there, because you're looking forward to some great basketball, which I'm looking forward to because we have a new college basketball season. It is upon us. And one of the things I like about this season, even though the pandemic is still a backdrop for what's happening, it's completely different than the last 2 years. So, two seasons ago, you just don't think about it. There's no idea of a pandemic or whatever coming about. All of a sudden it comes. You think that, okay, we'll still be able to finish the season and, we'll figure out what's going to happen afterwards. But no, it gets completely cut off. And there is no ending. There is no real ACC champion. There is no real NCAA champion because everything stopped.
Yeah.
And then last season, teams that are normally good weren't good. And you saw that what their superpower is, what Duke's superpower is Coach K can get those guys in June and start working with them early. So by the time November rolls around, they are already a well-oiled machine in that Coach K system, and they're out there, and his superpower is taken away. NC State, really good. 2 COVID pauses. They had a chance to be amazing. I mean, they beat Carolina, really like handedly too, in their first matchup of the season. And it was just a weird year last year.
Yeah, it was kind of awkward, or a little bit more than kind of awkward. I was actually thinking back to the last college basketball game I attended. Chris, and you were actually there. I think we actually may have crossed paths. It was the Duke Carolina game in 2020, just before the NCAA tournament. It was at Cameron Indoor. You had just started at WRAL. We didn't know each other back then, but that was the last college basketball game I've been to, was that one. And
absolutely,
to think that a week later, it just all stopped. It was so weird. It was awkward. It was hard actually watching games in empty arenas and stuff. I mean, I feel bad for a lot of these players because, again, if you're a junior now in college, you still haven't really truly had a full season where you had the full experience with fans and everything, because conference tournaments got all canceled. The NCAA tournament was canceled in 2020. Last year you're playing in partially filled arenas. You just didn't have what that college experience you expect and what everyone else has experienced. It's a big thing.
Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but it made me think about Armando Bacot from Carolina, and it made me think about Wendell Moore from Duke. Those guys are both juniors this season. Both of them, first off, Armando was on a team that had a lot of injuries his freshman year and had a down year for Carolina standards, 14-19. Right. And then you're thinking, okay, we're going to get back and next year is going to be year. But then now it's COVID. And then you didn't know that you were walking into the last year of Roy Williams, coaching. And then the changes in college basketball are coming, which is, probably one of the reasons why he's, decided to retire. And then, for Wendell Moore, you're coming after, Zion and RJ Barrett and Cam Reddish. And this team was expected to go all the way. And they didn't. And now you're coming into a year where Trey Jones decided to stay back. Your freshman class doesn't have the same, I guess, excitement that Zion and RJ Barrett and everything had.
Star power. We'll say star power.
Star power.
Yeah.
There's a few disappointments on the year, but you guys start really gelling at the end of the year, and especially in that last. You think about the way they won at Carolina. Like to go to overtime and just the way it happened, and for them to be down most of the game. And then and then you go to that last game against Carolina that you referenced, where they beat Carolina. I wouldn't say easily, but they easily beat Carolina.
Yeah.
And now you're looking at it like, oh, Trey Jones is back. This is why he's back. We can make a run in the tournament for the tournament to never even happen.
Yeah.
And now as a window more, you're coming back to try to rectify that the year after. You're one of the leaders, and you don't get a chance to meet your teammates until August. And, you guys are struggling. And then all of a sudden, you start getting hot at the end of the season at the right time at the ACC tournament. You need to win to get in. Whole team gets COVID.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. So you're right. Like you feel bad for the juniors who didn't have that chance. Same thing for NC State. You remember they were in a position to where if they ran through the ACC tournament back in 2020, that year that you referenced where we, first crossed paths, they could have beaten Duke because that was their next game at the ACC tournament.
Yeah.
Maybe they get into the NCAA tournament themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That they didn't even get the chance. And then last year, all the COVID pauses and things like that. So somebody like Manny Bates hasn't had a real chance to even try to make the NCAA tournament as a player.
Yeah, I've been thinking of myself as a coach to help coach at Meredith College with the lacrosse team there. And I just think about even our juniors, how they haven't even had a full experience quite yet because their freshman season got cut off in the middle of March. Last season, there were a lot of restrictions, so we weren't able to do the overnights because that's where you do a lot of team bonding is traveling on the bus, staying overnight in a hotel. It's where a lot of team bonding comes from. We were only able to do that twice. And even with the NCAA tournament and stuff, and there was restrictions on fans and attendance at games and things like that too. So sometimes families couldn't attend. We just weren't able to do everything that we're used to normally doing. And this was just across the board. So even I think about our juniors that I coach now still haven't had that full experience like they're used to, where they have all their friends and family at games for a whole season. It's hard. It really is hard. I really do feel bad for them because I witnessed that firsthand with them, and it's hard for them to navigate.
And this as a coach, you're looking towards your juniors to set that example for the freshmen and sophomores as the ones like, hey, this is what we're supposed to do. And, you're tell them what it's like to be there. But when the juniors don't know what it's like to be there, how can they let the freshmen and sophomores know what it's like to be there?
And even our seniors only got to experience it one time as freshmen. That's it. And that's a completely different experience. So they didn't even get to have the multiple years of experience to sit there and tell the freshmen, hey, this is what to expect. This is what you need to know, because we've been there multiple times. So yeah, it's not easy. It really is not easy. It's just not that fun in many ways. It really isn't. So yeah, props to the teams that do that. Again, the players that handle it properly and do things well and do things right off the court to ensure that they still get to play.
Well, that's something that Scott Wood didn't have to worry about. He's our guest for today's show on the Culture State podcast. He played, you may remember, of course, when he was there from 2009 to 2013 at NC State. He was just that guy who was just a three-point shooter, man. Like he was just amazing with it. And he was just that specialist. And NC State could pretty much count on him for a big-time three-point bucket. So, he made a lot of people upset with him when he'd make his three-point shots. So he'll be joining us today for this show. He wrapped up a professional career recently, doing his thing, living in Raleigh, North Carolina. And also goes back to, talk to the NC State basketball team. So I know he's ready for this year to see what they're going to do under Kevin Keatts as well.
Well, let's talk to the man, Scott Wood, coming up after this.
All right, it's another episode of the Culture State podcast, and this time we wanted to have some Wolfpack representation. Former Wolfpack star, three-point specialist, all around good guy. Scott Wood is joining us right now for the show. And Scott, I want to first off thank you for taking some time out to join us for the show today. But let's talk about the team this year. I saw that you had some time to spin around the team, and Coach Kevin Keats had you there in the facility amongst the team. What do you see from this year's Wolfpack men's basketball team?
It's gonna be an interesting year. I think they got a lot of pieces there. Obviously, in some preseason polls, I think I've seen 9th and 10th. So there's definitely a chip on their shoulder. They've added a lot of good pieces. Marcel from Virginia is a really good piece. They've added 3 freshmen. Traquavion Smith, I think, is going to be a guy that really surprises some people. He's really starting to pick up on the things they're trying to do. Obviously, I think it's gonna take time because there is a lot of new things coming in, a lot of new pieces. Obviously, I think Manny, Jarek Hull, and Cam are gonna have to play at a ACC, all-ACC level for them to really creep up into the top of the ACC this year. But I enjoyed watching them. The one thing that you're going to get out of them, they're going to play great defense and they're going to play really hard. So if they can find a way to put the ball in the basket and put some pressure on some teams, they got a chance to be really successful this year.
Now, from having graduated nearly a decade ago, what have you seen now in terms of the changes from where things were maybe right after you had graduated in terms of the program there at State?
You didn't have to say it like a decade ago. I mean,
hey, I graduated.
You're making me feel really old now.
It's okay. I'm older than you. It's fine.
It's okay. But the main thing, and I've said it the whole time, it's gone more. When I was playing, you had a lot of, more, I call it sets, the flex offense where it's continuous offense. So, motion offense where you're continuously moving. Like we ran a UCLA offense where we would get to what we called a triangle, which is basically 2 guys on the block, guy at the free throw line, and the ball would just move on the outside, and we just keep setting down screens. So you always had something moving. And now, and I think even with Coach Keats' system now, it's a lot more pick and roll dominated. And this is not just Coach Keats' system. This is just the game in general. Since I've left, it is now, integrated into more an isolation basketball. It's like, let's find the worst defender and find our best guy on offense and try and get it to them, which it looks really good, but it's very tough at some of those good levels because even the bad defender is going to be, an athlete that can, play well. So obviously I'm still a big fan of, those motion offenses. Obviously I love coming off screens and things like that, but at the same time, you got to use your studs and your workhorses. And if you can find those mismatches, you got to take advantage of them. So that's one of the main things that since I've left, I've really seen is that pick and roll and obviously a little bit more isolation.
With the Wolfpack, I think the one thing that concerns me this year, which was kind of a concern the last couple of years, is that Manny really is the only person who's going to be there to protect the paint. And, it's going to be very perimeter oriented for them, but they have the guards to throw at you pretty much all day. And of course, getting Casey Marcel from Virginia, he's used to playing defense. So the defense is definitely going to be there. Cam Hayes picked up like 10 pounds of muscle. He looks big and just strong right now.
Yeah.
But if Manny Bates goes down, I'm just kind of worried about what they're going to do from the paint, and honestly, I'm just wondering if you think that is something that could maybe hinder them this year if Manny Bates isn't ready to go for a few games.
I guarantee you, even if it wasn't me on here right now and it was Coach Keats sitting in front of you, he would 100% tell you if something happens to Manny, we'll have trouble. Obviously, they got 2 guys there that I call it a little bit raw. They're still learning the game. They're still trying to develop their game. But at the end of the day, they are getting better. They are, they're slowly getting there each and every day. And I know because Manny is such a pivotal piece that, they've limited him. So he didn't play in the preseason game, the exhibition game. Practices, they're trying to keep, a little bit of what they call load management on him, just because they know how pivotal of a piece he is. So I keep telling everybody, at all costs, we got to keep this man. If we gotta surround them by pillows, we got to surround them by pillows. But at the end of the day, they're still going to need a backup at that position. You can't expect him to give you 40 minutes every night. So those guys behind him, they gotta continue to develop, continue to get better, so they can give him a little bit of support. Because obviously, as you saw last year with Devin and a lot of teams, is all it takes for one guy to go down, and you got to be able to have something in place that you can kind of maintain that. Obviously, if Manny goes down, we don't have another Manny Bates, but you need to have something there where you can kind of maintain and guys can step up.
Now, you grew up in Indiana, which is known as a basketball state, or basketball is very big in the state of Indiana. But you played, obviously, college basketball here in North Carolina. I just got to ask, what makes North Carolina so superior and far better in basketball than Indiana?
Well, I tell everybody, so it was a really simple process for me because so I call Indiana the Mecca of high school basketball. Like, my gym holds north of 7,000 seats. So, I mean, we pretty much, back in my heyday, we would pretty much fill it out. And I think the average of my whole conference was almost 6,500. So it's a completely different thing over there. It's like Texas football, Pennsylvania football, some of those states that it's literally like playing a, Division 2, 3, even, school. So the way I looked at it was I was transitioning to the ACC and Tobacco Road, which to me is the Mecca of college basketball. I mean, I don't want to knock all the other conferences, but I mean, when I think of ACC, I think of basketball. I mean, maybe a little bit of the Big East, but I mean, the Big East isn't the Big East when I was growing up anymore. So that's one of the things that I really wanted to do. I wanted to, I prepared myself all through high school playing against really, really, really good competition from top to bottom. And I wanted to be able to show that I could do it at, the next levels. And to me, the Mecca of college basketball is in the ACC. So that's what the opportunity that I wanted. So, but I will say, man, high school basketball in Indiana, there's nothing like it. And I was one of the lucky ones that was able to experience that and come to the ACC.
While you were playing in the ACC, you had a chance to play against Coach K and Roy Williams. And it's kind of like one of those things where when you think about college basketball and the ACC in general, you think about Duke and North Carolina, and this almost a given. Now Roy Williams isn't there. Coach K is on his last year at Duke. What are your thoughts on just that and just how different the conference will look with just those two coaches not being there on the sidelines after this year is over?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be completely different. I mean, those are two legends that have, single-handedly, been in a program for longevity. They've won championships. They've brought ACC championships there. And I don't care what team you are in the ACC. Every single night you play them, you want to bring your best. And that's just how it is. Even if they're having a down year, you want to bring the best against a Carolina and a Duke. I played golf the other day with a Carolina fan, and they're like, oh, I'm a little worried about the change, this and that. And I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, it's still Carolina. They're still going to get recruits because of their name. Yeah. Obviously, Coach Davis is going to have to, implement his style because it's not going to be the same as Roy. But it's still Carolina. It's not like this thing's going to, be trash just the next day. They've completely built a legacy there that's going to be in place for regardless of who comes in, steps in as the next coach to last for, 5-10 more years. So, I'd imagine Shire and Coach Davis, they're going to do the same thing. They've been around, both of those coaches, for so long. They understand the things that worked for Coach K and Coach Williams, and then they're just going to implement all those good things and add a few things of their own to put their own spin on it.
What were some of your favorite memories of playing against UNC and Duke while you're at state?
Well, my memories versus UNC weren't as good because I did not win as many games. I tell everybody the thorn in my side is Carolina. There's something about Carolina that I just could not get over that hump. But Duke, I think I played at 500 or just over 500 I might have been at 500 for my career against Duke. So we played them really well. We beat them one time. Obviously, Ryan Kelly, I think, was out, or somebody was out for one of the games. We beat them my sophomore year when they were number one in the nation. I want to believe that that's the year that they won the national championship. But I mean, it is what it is. I mean, they're just the two biggest teams. When I think of college basketball, you can't say, North Carolina and Duke and leave them out. It's just two of those teams that, you're always going to remember each game you played, each game you beat them, the atmospheres, whether it was at RBC when I was there. Now it's PNC or Cameron or the Dean Dome. I mean, you're always going to remember that. So that's one of those things that I was lucky enough to be able to, go toe to toe with some of the great ones that were there and, be able to play against the Coach K's and the Coach Williams.
I want to ask you this from the NC State perspective, because I know as far as like the rivalries are concerned, the players aren't as deep into it as the fans. It's really the fans that kind of fuel that. And, you guys probably hang out, hoop and stuff, and it's all good. But when you know that the Carolina game is coming up, or that the Duke game is coming up, it always felt to me that from an NC State perspective, there's been no pressure against Duke. It's another ACC game. It's Duke, so you're going to bring your best. Yeah. But against Carolina, that's the old rivalry. That's the one where the students, all day are probably talking about, when you're in class and things like that. Did you, from an NC State player perspective, did you feel more pressure during those games?
So I didn't, but I will also tell you this. The one thing that I've kind of learned over the years, especially while I was playing, NC State is a better matchup against Duke. For the logic in that they carry a more traditional big. I feel like, especially during the years I was playing there, I had CJ Leslie and Richard Howe as my big. So I had two absolutely mobile big men. So when they have that, a traditional big on that, and you're starting, to get them involved in a lot of screens, now that forces, some 7-footers and some slower guys to get into those situations. And I feel like you're able to take advantage of it. So like, for example, the Ed Davises, the John Henson's, you got 6'11" guys that are athletes and can move just like Richard and CJ. So you don't really get that advantage anymore. But it is, I tell everybody, I mean, Reggie Bullock's a good friend of mine. Mason Plumlee, I grew up, playing basketball with when he was in Indiana my entire life, on the same AU team when we're 8 years old. It's just different. You're boys with them. But the fans, there's just that absolute hate, and that's all you hear about. The students, everybody. I mean, there's just that hate, and I like all of those guys. It's like you said, in the summertime, we're playing pickups. We're talking some trash. But the one thing as a competitor is, as soon as you step on that court, I don't care if my sister, my wife, my daughter's on Duke or Carolina, I'm trying to kill them. That's just the facts of the matter. After the game, I'm going to shake their hand, be like, man, that was a good one. I'll see you, in 2-3 weeks, go hang out, do something. But as soon as you're, the game is started, it doesn't matter if it's your best friend or anybody. It's just competition. You want to win. But my hatred towards them, or my, rivalry, I wouldn't say, outside basketball that it's that intense as some of the fans.
Which fan base did you receive the most, I guess, vitriol from?
Well, it's definitely Carolina, for the fact that I had some famous quotes. Because I just couldn't get over the hump, and I just got tired of answering the dang questions about, when are you going to beat Carolina? When are you going to? So I got a little flustered and had some famous quotes. And I mean, Carolina fans were, because this is back when social media was just like, I just had a Twitter, and I don't even think I had an Instagram then. But all of a sudden, you start reading, like, oh, you said this and that, and it's so. Carolina is definitely one of those that was. I mean, they wanted to give it to you. Obviously Duke, you get in that gym and they got the little finger things on you when you're on the sideline. But that stuff never really bothered me. But the Carolina fans, and they would definitely get after you, and they were out for blood. That's for sure.
Putting on your basketball analyst hat with, I know that Coach Hubert Davis has said he wants to use more spacing. They don't have the two bigs now clogging up the middle. And I thought that was always one of the things where Carolina always has so much size, bigger than Duke and bigger than NC State for sure. And they were able to get so many different rebounds. Now it's really going to be on Armando Bacot. And if it's not him, then it's going to be a lot of different just athletes out there. Do you think that poses a better matchup for NC State this year because of that? And it'll be pretty much Manny versus Armando. Everybody else are just, pretty much same size athletes.
Yeah, I think it will. And I think also the last couple of years, I think Coach Keith has played them really well because of the fact that they did have two bigs out there, and you could get that matchup problem with, Jericho or someone like that who's playing the four, because, it causes a problem. But on the flip side of it, it's a little bit more difficult to get rebounds on the other end because, you know, you got a 6'10" and a 7-footer down there, you know, getting some rebounds. So it kind of goes hand in hand. But I do think with Baycott now being the so big, and obviously I think he moves his feet pretty good. And I think Manny's also one of those. He probably falls more in the traditional big, you know, trying to sit in the paint a little bit more, block a few more shots. But again, it's that, you know, being able to find that mismatch. And I think that if you can get, you know, a Cam Hayes on a Baycott on a high pick and roll, which is a lot of action they run, you can obviously try to exploit that, you know, mismatch.
Scott, I want to ask you about your professional career. You've played in a lot of different places.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the places like overseas that you may have enjoyed or have been like, I got to get out of here? What were some of those places like playing professionally for you?
Yeah, you know, I was one of the fortunate ones that I didn't hit too many places where I was like, I got to get out of this place. I was really lucky. I had a really good agent that really looked out for me. I ended up being in Spain for 4 years. I really enjoyed my time there. Obviously, the culture shock of first getting over there really hits you. And then, you know, after my second year in Spain, I started to pick up on the language a little bit. So I was a little bit more comfortable going out, ordering, you know, dinner and things like that. I was a year at France, which France was just fine. The only thing I had an issue with France was the weather was just crummy. I feel like I probably went 30 days without seeing the sun. So that part of it got a little bit miserable after a while. But the coach was fortunate enough after every game, he'd give us 2 off days. So we would just drive to Paris or something and just enjoy ourselves. So Turkey was absolutely gorgeous. It was one of those places that I didn't know a lot about. As soon as I got there, we were right on the coast. The people were so friendly. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better place there. So, I mean, I was one of the lucky ones. I got a lot of buddies of mine that get over there and they just chase the check. So they're willing to go to some places that, you know, they don't necessarily want to live or is going to be a little uncomfortable because they're getting, you know, a check. But I was in a good spot with my agency that, you know, they really looked into living because my first 2 years I was alone. Then my wife came over. So, I mean, I've got somebody else there. So I can't just drag her in the middle of nowhere and expect her to be okay with it. So we had some really good spots. I really enjoyed Spain. Turkey's one of those that I really enjoyed. And, you know, 8.5 years overseas is a long time. And I'm glad to kind of settle in and be able to hang back in the States a little bit more.
I've got to ask you about before we let you go the basketball tournament TBT.
Yeah.
And this year the Wolf Blood you know, team that was there, which had all the NC State alum kind of coming together. So this is going to be kind of like a layered question. So first off, what was it like playing with folks that you played with or different, you know, folks that you didn't get a chance to play with who are also NC State, former NC State basketball stars. But then also I want to know what you think the future of Wolf Blood will be for the TBT, and what are your thoughts on the Elam ending?
So first off, it was highly enjoyable for me because I tell everybody, like, everybody thinks being a professional basketball player is great and all, but it also changes your perspective on the game. You know, you're playing for a check now. It's your job. So, you know, there's a lot more pressure on you on that aspect. So being able to get back with guys that, you know, I've competed with, the CJ Williams, you know, the Trevor Lacey's, and then you've got a whole different generation that, you know, I didn't play with, but I was around when I came home as a professional to work out with, to play pickup with. Was a lot of fun because, you know, obviously there's a $1 million take all winning, but at the same time, we're all, you know, we're playing for NC State. You know, we've all worn the jersey. You know, Duke calls it a brotherhood. It's literally like a family, you know. So being able to be with them, it really did. It brought a lot of enjoyment to me because after, you know, the last few years of playing professional basketball, it starts to wear on you. You start to not enjoy the game as much, but being able to, you know, suit up with guys that, you know, have your back, was a lot of fun. And then the second question, that was about the future of the Wolfpack TBT, right? About Wolf Blood.
Yeah.
So the future is going to be good because we had a lot of guys, you know, obviously Lorenzo Brown didn't play. Cat Barber could not play because he ended up signing a deal in Canada. There were a few guys that we anticipated them playing, but it kind of depended on a few things. So there's going to be, you know, 3 or 4 guys that I really think will help Richard Howe comes to mind. Richard had a meniscus tear, so we expected him to play, and he just wasn't back in time. And I think there's a lot of pieces that are really going to help. Obviously, that'll put Trevor off the ball a little bit more, so he doesn't have to bring the ball up, and he can be a little bit more of a scorer than a facilitator. So, I mean, honestly, the future is really bright. I don't know what it'll look like for me. I haven't, touched the ball in a little bit of time, so I might be more of the
all you gotta do is put up the threes
of it than the shooting and playing. But I really do. I expect a lot of guys that saw us play that kind of fire them up and really want to play for the following year. And I think that'll be big for us because, I mean, Miami ended up going to the Elite Eight. I mean, they weren't no slouch. I mean, they were a good team. So, and then the third part, the Elam ending, I do really enjoy because it forces you not to hold the ball.
Yeah.
And that was my thing. After watching it, you get in games, if you just have a clock with 5 minutes and you're up, 12, now all of a sudden they're just going to be conservative. They're just going to kind of move the ball around. Now it forces you got to go get your points. You got to get to this number. And we actually, I think we were like down, I want to say 10 maybe when the Elam ending started. And we ended up cutting it to, I think, like 6 or 5. And again, it puts pressure all on the team that was up because all they got to do is get the 8. What is it, 8 or 11?
I can't remember. It's one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say it's 8. So that puts pressure on them now because we're really going to blow what's technically, I mean, we're only down 10, but it's technically an 18-point lead because all you got to do is get those 8 points. So it's very unique. I know a lot of people that I talked with that watched were like, I really do like that ending. I think it's something that's unique. It's different. Obviously I don't know if it'll ever get implemented in anything in like today's game, but it was a lot of fun to be a part of. And I think, especially for the TBT, they got something really good going. And I think for the Wolfblood team, it'll definitely pick up the following year.
And silly fouls and things like that, like at the end with that slow down the game, I think it kind of helps eliminate that. That's something I liked about it as well.
Well, and that's the thing. I remember specifically, I picked up a foul and it turns into, I think it's 2 shots and ball if you're in the bonus. So you as a defender now, you have to play really smart because if you foul, they get 2 shots and the ball. So there's a lot of little kind of quirky things that you got to be mindful of. Because I actually didn't really know that when I fouled because everybody's looking at me like, what are you doing? It's like, I didn't know that part. Luckily, I think you made one free throw and they didn't score, so it didn't hurt us too much. But it is, I mean, it's 8 points. It matters so much more because you're not playing the clock. You're playing that number.
Yeah.
So it is. It's a lot of fun, and I anticipate Wolfblood to have some really good teams here in the future.
Awesome. I like the Elam ending. I'm all for it. I don't like how a last minute of a game can take 30 minutes. It feels like
right
with all the balance.
Well, and 2, I mean, you got a team that's down 2, but they're 3 away from the Elam ending, and I'm shooting a 3. Like, I was talking with Juice who coached us, and I point blank told him, I said, look, if we're down 2 and we need 3 for the Elam ending, I'm just gonna run around until I get one off. Like, I'm just telling you. There's no point going back and playing defense. We're just going to end it now. So it's unique. It's a lot of fun, and you're guaranteed a game winner. So
for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're busy for the week, and we appreciate your time. And we'll see what the Wolfpack end up doing this year as they're coming up on a pretty interesting year in college basketball. Scott Wood, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
All right, we want to thank Scott Wood for taking some time out. For those who are watching, you noticed that he was in his car doing this. Yeah. He was about to go into a restaurant, took some time to speak to us, and in the middle of nowhere. He's like in the country right now. So I'm glad that his service held up as well for everything.
Yeah, somewhere off the Pamlico River he was. we won't say specifically, but he was somewhere out there. We'll let people try and track him down if they want to. But yeah, it was a fun conversation with Scott, and it was really kind of cool hearing a little bit about his experience playing overseas and how they were good experiences, because again, hear from some people, you hear nightmare stories about playing in different countries and stuff. And then it was nice to hear that he had great experiences overall during his time overseas. But we talked about something, Chris.
Yep.
There's something called the TBT, the basketball tournament, which I think is just a phenomenal name. It's simple to the point. It's the basketball tournament.
and I love it. It's been the highlight of my summer for like the last 3 summers. I love the TBT.
For those who don't know, the TBT is a collection of players who are no longer professional. You can't be under a professional contract with any team in any league, but it's a collection of players that play in this.
You could be overseas.
Okay, yeah, you can be overseas. You can be overseas, but you can't be like in the NBA G League or something along those lines. Right. But this tournament is a collection of teams where it's $1 million winner take all. If you win the whole thing, $1 million. You split it amongst your team how you want. If you don't win, thanks for playing. That's really what it is, and it's on ESPN. It really is a lot of fun if you just like basketball, maybe watching some players you used to enjoy in college, like a Scott Wood and some other NC State, former NC State basketball players. But they use something, Chris, called the Elam ending. And I want you to explain what the Elam ending is, because we did talk about it, but I really like it.
Yeah, so for those who heard us talk about it and wondering what it is, so we've got it for you. So here's what happens. So you're going to have your regular 12-minute quarters, right? But when in the fourth quarter, the first dead ball under 4 minutes remaining in the game, the clock is then turned off. So it could be at 3:59. It could be at 2:30, just whenever the first dead ball happens. At under 4 minutes, the clock is then turned off. Then 8 is added to the team score who has the highest score at that point. So if the score is 70-64 when the game clock is shut off, then you add 8 to that. So the target score to win for either team is 78. So if you're 64 points, you have to score 14 to win. If you have 70 points, you have to score 8 to win. And so whoever gets to that first is the winner. If a team commits a foul while in the bonus during the Elam ending portion of the game, the other team will get 1 free throw and retain possession of the ball rather than 2 free throws. So that was something that Scott was talking about, and we got the actual rules behind that. And so that's why it's important to not foul. So it's a different way to end the game instead of just the hack-a-shack thing where you're just kind of fouling at the end of the game, trying to slow down the game and hopefully, trying to elongate it for the team that is down. Now you really have to play. You can't do that. You got to play real defense. You can't just foul your way away, and you have to actually score during that time.
Yeah, you can't just take the air out of the ball and hold for these long possessions and things like that, because you still have to score. I will say the one thing about basketball that I do not like, both pro and college, is how the last minute or so of a game can take a half hour, if not longer, to play. Sure. Because you got fouls, all these timeouts, and I'm like, stop. Like, to me, I think you only should be allowed to have 1 timeout the last minute of a game. That's it. You get 1 timeout. That's it. I don't know why we're so. One of the reasons why I like the Elam ending is because it is different. I don't know why in sports we're so, and even just in general, we're so hesitant to change and try new things. It's like, you know what? Let's try it. If we don't like it, okay, we can always go back to what was. You don't have to make things permanent for forever. There's no reason why we can't explore these different options when it comes to deciding winners of games or just how games operate towards the end. The one thing about, again, basketball I don't like is that the final minute or so can just take so darn long. It takes longer than the rest of the game to be played.
So I'm split on that because I do agree with you in one sense. But in the other sense, if we got rid of that, then the 2020 ending to the Duke and Carolina game at Carolina would have never happened, right?
Yeah,
and
sure.
And it's one of those, that was such a classic game, how that happened. And I was there in person covering that game for WXI. It was right before I was leaving WXI to come to WRAL. Mm-hmm. And, just Duke was down, had no business in that game. They did exactly what you said. They slowed it down, but it ended up being a pretty exciting finish because Duke ends up tying it up. We all remember, the purposely missed free throw from Trey Jones, gets the ball, rebound, hits the shot, ties it up. We go to overtime. And then Duke then again falls behind, is able to catch back up. And then it's Wendell Moore, who I think Trey Jones was shooting it, and it was going to be an air ball. Wendell Moore is there to catch it, lay it up for the win. And it's you don't get that. But every game isn't that when you slow down the game. Sometimes it's just a boring into the game with
Yeah.
two random teams you don't care for on a Tuesday night, and you're on deadline and you just need to get out of there. So
Yeah.
I do get you from that sense.
There are way more of those games than you are talking about the Carolina Duke ending. Way more.
True.
Because here's my thing.
Very
That
true.
Duke Carolina ending is as fantastic and as fun as it was. That's the exception. Okay. That's the
And it
exception.
still took
That's
like an
not a
hour.
rule. Exactly.
From like the last 4 minutes of the second half it took like an hour. For like 9 minutes of game time.
Oh, gosh, it's just whereas like the other 36 minutes of game time took an hour. That's my point. It's
hour and a half.
If that. But that's my point, is that it takes so long. And I'll turn on to a basketball game late in the last 2 minutes, and if it's close, it's like, all right, I'm gonna go take a shower because I know I'm gonna come back and not miss anything, because there's still gonna be 30 seconds on the clock after I take this shower. It's just I don't like it. I don't know why we are so hesitant to try something different. Let's try something football. Let's try something different when it comes to onsides. Let's try something like in hockey. They're exploring some different stuff. Baseball, at this season, they in extra innings, they put the runner on second base during the regular season. And people are like, oh God, no, this isn't baseball. Well, why not? There's a runner on second base. What's not baseball about a runner on second base? That's my thing. So many people are just hesitant. It's like, well, it's always what we've done. Why? Why can't we try and do something different?
I like the second base runner idea for as far as baseball is concerned. Here's something, though. I think the NFL should take a page from the XFL if the XFL never comes back. Because one of the things I really, really loved about the XFL that we only saw for a little bit, it feels like the NFL is slowly but surely taking the kickoff out of the game. And I love the idea of the kickoff. And the XFL, however, you had one team kind of lining up. I want to say, I can't remember exactly where it was, but at the 25
line. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And then the other teams lined up at the 35. So they're 10 yards away from each other. But the kicker is way back there kicking off at the 30 or 25, wherever he's kicking off from. And the returner is behind his team. So then you have 10 versus 10. And if you are blocking that correctly within 10, yards, then that person can still break one and go for a touchdown. So it's still possible, but you also eliminate, the crazy collisions where somebody's running 50 yards and colliding into somebody.
Yeah,
or if that doesn't happen, then you have safer tackles. And I think that's something that the NFL definitely should look at, because that was one of the innovations of the XFL. I was like, okay, I really like that. It really solves the problem of we don't want these crazy collisions anymore, but we still want to have kickoffs, because that is an important part of the game. It's almost kind of like, like special teams. Would you take special teams out of the NHL?
No.
That's a very important part of the team. You need special teams in the NFL as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you. Again, that was trying something different, and the XFL did it. And honestly, it worked. I liked it. I think a lot of people liked it. Yeah. So why not explore things? That's just my whole thing. Why not try it? You know what? And you can use, for example, the NHL went with shootouts. They're so tired of ties and teams playing for ties. Okay, we're going to put a shootout. Let's get that. Make sure we have a winner at the end of the night, which I'm okay with that.
I like the 3-on-3 overtime concept as well, because it opens up the ice for more 100%. To happen too. And I think we saw that, especially last year. There were so many more overtime games that seemed to. I think I don't know. I don't have the data in front of us, but I feel like we had less ties to end the game, and overtimes didn't take as long, because you put 3-on-3 out there. You don't have the extra defenders or whatever. So one person's lagging on defense, that can be a goal within seconds. And we saw that plenty of times, especially with the Carolina Hurricanes, because they would get teams easily off of that overtime.
Well, yeah. So it works both ways. Like, okay, you have a 2-on-1 and that 3-on-3. Well, if you miss it and the other team gets the puck, it's 2-on-1 coming right back at you. And it could be a goal coming right back. But again, that it's exciting. It's fun. It's different. And overtime hockey in the NHL, at least regular season, is a lot of fun. The playoffs, they keep it still 5-on-5 like normal, and it's its own separate beast, and it's still entertaining. But again, they do something different in the regular season. I'm okay with both. Just give me a winner. Like, it just keep the game moving. Here's one thing I will say. Like with soccer, for example, I don't like how there are a lot of draws in soccer. I want to make sure I use proper terminology here for our football folks. I don't like how there's so many draws, but I know at the end of the day, I know exactly how long that game's going to take, and I love it. It's like it's 90 minutes.
The NBA was trying different rules with the G League, last year, and I think they had it to where like something I'm going to have this wrong. I'm going to botch this. I already know, but if you're fouled on a 3, I think you still only get like the 1 free throw.
Yeah,
and
but
then,
it counts for 3 points.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that though.
I don't like that either.
I don't like that one. That was like, good for them for trying something out and trying to be innovative in something. I do think they have an opportunity with the Elam ending to maybe try it out in the G League, see if that works, and then maybe that could be a regular season thing. But give us, just a normal ending for, the playoffs, because the part about the NBA, the playoffs are never boring. Like I can watch first round through, the championship round, and that's amazing. The problem with the NBA is after opening night, and if it's not Christmas, if it's not the All-Star weekend, and if it's not like the end of the regular season, it's hard to care.
Yeah.
It's really hard to care, because we're starting to get into that point to where we're going to have this Thursday night game between maybe the Timberwolves and let's say like the Spurs. If that is your marquee game for the night on ESPN, I'm probably not going to watch.
That's me. Whatever. Don't care.
So I definitely think the NBA should do something to make us care during a regular season. So they've been talking about potentially doing a midseason tournament and things like that. There's some things that people don't like. I wouldn't mind a midseason tournament, especially if you're playing for like, whoever wins the midseason tournament gets an automatic bid to the playoffs no matter what, or something like that. I did like the play-in tournament. I thought that was cool last year too. Some people didn't like it, but I like the innovation that the NBA is trying to show right now.
I'm okay with it. Try different. It's okay to try and do things differently. There's nothing wrong with it. Because again, if it doesn't work, you can always go back to what you're doing. It's not that hard.
Dennis, you can try different and actually drink a smoothie one day. Maybe even have a vegan burger.
I've had one. You made it for me. Yeah,
but every time you get a burger, maybe just make sure it's vegan so that Mother Earth is happy. Thank you guys for listening to the Culture State Podcast. I'm Chris Lee. Make sure you give us 5 stars on that rating for this episode and for other episodes. We love you so much. And when the pandemic is over, we're going to give you a hug if we see you out there. I'm Chris Lee. That is Dennis Cox. Follow us on social media. I am at Chris Lee TV on Twitter and Instagram.
I'm at the Fam Rookie, also on Twitter and Instagram. Also, make sure you give our sponsor, Papa Murphy's Pizza, a follow at Papa Murphy's Pizza. Again, every Tuesday, $10.99 large pizzas. Change the way you pizza.
Absolutely. Did you want to retort? It looked like you were going to retort to me.
No, it's fine, Chris. We'll just leave it there.
Papa Murphy's even said it. Change the way you pizza. So we're talking about changes. Changes. See y'all.
The Culture State Podcast, part of the Capital Broadcasting Podcast Network, with new shows coming out every Wednesday. Download and subscribe from wherever you get your podcasts, including the WRAL Sports Fan app.